Canada's clampdown on protest funds may be a challenge to the financial industry. By Nicola Samanatha. Toronto, Canada roped in banks to help cut funding to protesters against COVID-19 mandates this week, but the requested speed and broad scope of the measures leaves financial institutions to their own devices in enforcing most of them, industry watchers said. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Monday invoked the Rarely Used Emergencies Act, imposing sweeping measures that require banks to freeze accounts linked to the protest without court orders, ask insurers to suspend coverage on vehicles used in blockades, and bring crowdfunding platforms under terror financing oversight. Regulations released late on Tuesday widen that net, ordering banks, credit societies, investment firms, crowdfunding donation platforms to stop providing financial services to people suspected of furthering the protest. The Canadian Bankers Association said all financial institutions will need to diligently implement the required measures, adding it would not affect the majority of customers. Protesters against Canada's pandemic restrictions have gridlocked the nation's capital and blocked U.S. border crossings, prompting Trudeau to turn to the emergency powers to take control of the situation. Canadian law enforcement has been sharing information with financial institutions, who have already taken action based on it, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland told reporters on Thursday. The emergency measures we put in place are being used, she said. They are having an impact, and they will have a growing impact in the days to come. But some industry watchers expressed concerns with, and confusion about, the measures. It is framed in a very vague way. It's a broad transfer of responsibility from the government to the private sector, said Marius Zoakin, assistant professor of finance at the University of Toronto. This would not be easy on the bank. They're caught in between the order and public opinion. The rules are framed similarly to existing regulations dealing with sanctioned individuals or entities, said Jacqueline Shinfield, co-lead of the financial services regulatory group at law firm Blake, Castles Graydon. But the challenge lies in the speed with which it comes into effect. Essentially, immediately, Shinfield said. The lack of clarity around which clients would be subject to the measures and who makes this determination is also a potential hurdle, she said. Multi-layered increase. To comply, banks must ensure payment processors are abiding by the regulations. Payment processors in turn will want to ensure crowdfunding platforms do the same, creating a multi-layered increase of regulation that companies will need to meet in a short period of time, said Vanessa Iafala, financial crime consultant with Anti-Fraud Intelligence Consulting. Trudeau said the emergency measures, which need to be approved by Parliament within 7 days and cannot exceed 30 days, will be time-limited. This is going to be probably more symbolic than something with a lot of teeth to it, said Brian Madden, Chief Investment Officer at First Avenue Investment Council. This creates a short-term urgent project, but it's not of such a magnitude and duration that start hiring 500 people to do anti-truck blockade compliance regulation. Even so, banks will have to update their systems to flag and manually scour transactions, particularly those related to cryptocurrencies and crowdfunding platforms that would not have been deemed suspicious earlier, Zoakin said, which could lead to some short-term cost. The lack of defined parameters, such as on dollar amount thresholds for suspicious transactions, mean banks' actions are unlikely to be as exhaustive as the government would like, both Madden and Zoakin said. If you donate 10,000 Canadian dollars or 20,000 Canadian dollars, then you're really involved. If you're just putting 25 Canadian dollars in a GoFundMe account, you can't really be treated as a terrorist financier, Zoakin said. This is taking a hammer to swat at a fly.